I'm Rob. I am well. I have no time constraints. We have 2 or 3 folks missing. Alex Dworzanski, Fernando Vasquez, and Teresa Bowen. I have no elephants, and expectation is to make progress.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Thompson, Assistant Director of Compensation. I am a guest here today to help with the presentation that we've prepared for you. I'm fabulous, as always. No time constraints. Yeah, no elephants. Expectations is you guys are going to love what we have to show you.
Okay, awesome. My name is Amy. I'm just fine. No time constraints, no elephants, and my expectations are we're gonna get close to completion.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Kelfi. I'm doing well. Missing is noted, no time constraints.
I'm Jason, I'm doing amazing. I have a 4:45 time constraint. Missing has been noted. I don't have any elephants that I'm aware of. My expectation is make progress.
Good afternoon, my name is Candy Messenger, Director of Food and Nutrition Services. I'm doing well, no time constraints. Missing has been noted. I have no elephants, and my expectations is close to completion.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Cedino, Director for Maintenance Services, doing well. No time constraints, missing as noted. No elephants, expectations the same, close to completion.
Course McIntosh, I'm doing well. I have no time constraints today. Missing has been noted. No elephants in the room, and my expectation is to make progress as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Lois Dubay. I am well. No time constraints. Missing for us is Victoria Davis. No elephants. Expectations to make progress. That's it.
Oh, Jacqueline. She's technically not on the team now. Okay. I'm sorry, you said your expectations to make progress?
Good evening or good afternoon. My name is Arlise Williams. I am well. No time constraint. Missing has been noted. The elephant, my expectation is to make progress.
My name is Deborah Evans. The name is Deborah Evans. No time restraint. Missing has been noted. No elephant. Expectation to make progress.
Hi, I'm Laura Rosen. I'm doing great. Time constraints, 4:45. Missing noted. No elephants. Expectations to make progress.
I'm Amy French. I'm doing well. I do not have any time constraints. I wrote here. I do not have any elephants, and my expectations are about to keep all 3 of your expectations tonight.
And good afternoon, I'm Donna Monsenard, I'm doing well. I have no time constraints, everything else has been mentioned, and as I said, help you meet your expectations. So with that, it was mentioned that there is a presentation today.
Yes, there were minutes.
Oh, there were minutes, okay.
So,
Okay, 1 or 2?
June 17th and June 20th.
Okay. June 17th minutes. First, okay. Anybody have any corrections or deletions to the June 17th minutes? Yes, Deborah. Can you pass Deborah the mic, please?
Okay, it says that, the district believes that this is a multiple year process as far as the, meeting the midpoint. And
This is June 17th, you're looking at which page?
It's on the second page.
Okay.
And I want to know what was the amount of years consumed in that multiple year?
So Deborah, I just copied the minutes, that's what was written on them. So the conversation was about the implementation of the the Evergreen salary study. And I think we mentioned it would be multi-year. But Amy can help.
Specific number. Amy?
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, what we were talking about that was that, yes, in order to fully, fully accomplish everything that we wanted to within the salary schedule and fully try to stretch out compression and get to where we wanted to be in competitiveness was going to take multiple years, but we didn't define how many years that was. We just said we wanted to try to be as aggressive as we could with doing everything we could each year.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions or corrections or deletions on June 17 minutes, none, please. Okay, we're good to June 17. Let's move to June 20th. Any corrections, deletions on June 20th? Or questions? Clarifications? Patrice? No. No. We don't want you to stay quiet, Patrice. Come on.
On page 2, under SPALC caucus report, no, it's June 20th. Oh, we were under the impression, and this is just a question, just from new information, it said that the salary study is complete for SPALC. According to the superintendent, it is not. Is that correct?
Salary study complete or not complete?
Yeah, I think we may be splitting hairs. It may not be complete till we fully implement it. But as far as the data that pertains to SPALC, unless Amy wants to correct me, I believe that's completed.
Okay, well, I guess we'll probably get more into that as we go. From my understanding, what the superintendent had said that the data had not been complete for SPALC as of June 26th, the last board meeting. Is that correct or not? I'm just trying to get.
I'm not going to speak for the superintendent. Obviously, we can go back.
I'm asking you to speak for the superintendent.
No. So if we can go back and watch the board meeting, I'm not sure what he was referring to. I know there was board member questions.
He was referring to the Evergreen study.
No, I understand, but there's 4 employee groups. So I know there was conversation about salaries for specific employee groups down to the minutia of attorneys, which includes me, and there was conversation about the salary study referencing that. And I think that's where he spoke up and said that some of the study wasn't done.
Yeah, so, right, everything that Rob just said, plus I think where we were saying that it wasn't complete was until implementation and until final report comes out, everything is not complete because there are still opportunities for us to go back and forth to refine based on everything that we talk about here and the information that Evergreen gives us. So I think that was what he was referring to, that all of that process is not complete yet. But all of the data that we've received from Evergreen related to SPALC, we've gone over here and you haven't so far. We continue to go back and forth with them about the things that we discuss here at the table, if that helps.
Okay, because he had said SPALC and Schedule N. I only, Schedule M, as in Mary.
Yeah.
And it's N as in Nancy, but yeah,
He said, oh, it was N?
Yes,
That's what I
yes.
don't remember having a Schedule M.
That's because we never have.
But he said that the data was not complete, so you're saying, but we do have, the data is in-house at the district.
In that we've
being scrubbed through, or you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And the data that we've received, you have received through our previous sessions and all the information that we've gone through before.
Okay.
But as we continue to refine, just as last time we were here, we talked about some information that we were like, well, we proposed something a little bit different than maybe what they proposed because of our internal situations. And we're giving that back to them, and then they do some stuff with it and make sure that we are still in alignment. So it's still a work in progress, basically.
Of course, of course. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else for the June 20th minutes? All right, I don't see anyone with hand raised, so may we approve the June 20th minutes, please, Amy C. Thomas. All right, good, thank you. All right, with that, I know you said you had something that everybody's going to love, so I can't wait today to see it.
Yeah, so, love is relative. So, at the end of last session, which was June 20th, we had caucuses, and then we discussed providing more information to clarify some things in what essentially is option 1, which is up there with those sheets of paper. And one of the specifics that SPALC asked for was how would this look for specific employees? So we have data to show you relative to option 1, and then we will eventually have an option 2 to present. But I will let Kirsten and Amy sort of take it from here.
Is that okay with everybody over there? All right, let's go with it.
Amy's gonna pass some documents out, but we're also gonna try to project it up here.
yes.
Okay, so what we did was we selected a random group of positions. So we did 6 different jobs, and then we selected one employee in each of the year spread categories so that we could walk through the calculations for actual real live employees. We left names out, we just refer to them as employee 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's the same, the next option that we have, it's the same employees as well. Yep. So option 1 is what was shared at the last meeting. So essentially it's taking every employee, bringing them up to the minimum of the new pay grade if they are not already at that minimum of the new pay grade, plus giving them a 2% COLA increase on top of that bring to minimum. So it's bring to minimum plus 2% COLA. And then the longevity adjustment, so these are the adjustments to kind of stretch out and address some of that compression, is based on 0 to 1 years of service. They're only going to get that bring to minimum and 2% COLA. 1 to just up to 7 years of service, 1% longevity. 7 to up to 14, 1.5%. 14 to up to 22%. And 20 and over 2.5%. Now you'll notice the sheets that you have different amounts. So if you could write over and correct what you have on your sheet on the packet that says option 1. Yes, for the years of service on the second page, the different year brackets.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's a mistake on the paperwork.
Yeah, so what's presented on the screen has been updated.
Okay.
On the screen, correct.
Okay, so the first job that we selected was site worker. So on the top, the site worker is one that is being proposed to go into grade 1 of the new pay scale, and the minimum of that new grade is $15.50 per hour. Employee number 1 has 1 year of service, and the current hourly rate is $16.20 because this is a market rate position. This employee already exceeds the minimum of $15.50 per hour, so they would just get the 2% COLA. So that brings this employee to $16.52 an hour. $16.52 times the longevity adjustment of 0% because they've only been here 1 year means their new rate on this option would be $16.52 an hour, which is a total increase of the 2%, which is the COLA. Employee number 2 has 4 years of service with a current hourly rate of $16.20. Again, this employee already exceeds the new minimum rate, so they get the 2% COLA, bringing them to $16.52. And then they get an additional 1% for the longevity, which on your little chart shows it's 1% for longevity for 2 to 5 years experience. So based on that, their new rate would be $16.69 with a total increase of 3%. Employee number 3 has 10 years of service with a current hourly rate of $16.20. Again, already exceeds the minimum, so with the 2% COLA is $16.52 an hour. This employee would get 1.5% longevity for 10 years of service with a new rate of $16.77 for a total increase of 3.5%. And then employee 4 has 31 years of service with a current hourly rate of $19.99. $19.99 exceeds the minimum of $15.50, so they get the 2% COLA, which would be $20.39, and then a longevity increase of 2.5%, so the new rate would be $20.39 for a total increase of 4.5%. Now, the graphic on the bottom, what this shows you is that this proposed grade SO1, the minimum is $15.50, the midpoint is $19.38, and the maximum is $23.25. On the top half of this graphic, you see 1, 2, and 3 all lumped together, and then 4 at just a little bit over the midpoint. What that shows is each of those employees kind of plotted out onto this new pay range based on what they're currently making. So as you can see, employees 1, 2, and 3 are all lumped together making the same thing at $16.20 an hour for 1 year, 4 years, and 10 years of service. On the bottom of it, it shows plotted out where each of the employees will be with these increases in the new range. And so what you can see is now, instead of them all being lumped together making the same thing, now we're starting to spread them out, as you would expect to see that, you know, those who have longer service are making more money. So this is like a first step in starting to stretch out that compression along the pay range.
Can we go back to employee number 4?
Okay.
Is that a mathematical error down
Oh, it's 2039. Wait, no. Oh, yeah. Well, it should be, well, so it's $19.99 times 2%.
at the bottom, 2039?
$2.5 equals new rate.
Yeah, I think that those two numbers are, sorry, that those were interposed, so, or that we didn't switch around. So, they got the 2% COLA, which took them from $19.99 to $20.39. Then the next line should say $20.39 times 2.5%, which would give you $20.90. So those two numbers, sorry about that, that was just
Your testament.
Good catch.
Same thing. For a total increase still of the 4.5%.
Are these COLA amounts, are these just for illustration purposes?
the amount that was presented in the option at the last meeting.
So they're not, okay.
Remember, this is just an option. Any number in here can be adjusted or changed. This is just an option. If you want the COLA to be higher, then other numbers are gonna change as well.
Okay, well, I guess because COLA from year to year does change, or over a couple of years does change, and I see in all four of these, it's just 2%.
Right, that's what their option is for this year.
Oh, just for this year?
Yes, yes, it's just this time, this year is what this option is and is talking about.
Okay, thank you.
This is what it would look like to implement this option this year, transitioning everyone to the current pay structure to this new pay structure that was proposed at the last meeting. Okay, so then the next job that we selected was custodian. And the proposed grade for custodian is 2, and the minimum of the pay range for a 2 is $16.43. Employee number 1 has 1 year of service with an hourly rate of $16.20. So this employee is going to be brought up to the $16.43, then given an additional 2% on top of the $16.43, bringing them to $16.76. And then a 0% longevity adjustment for 1 year of service. So their new rate would be $16.76 for a total increase of 3.4%. Employee number 2, 4 years of service with a current hourly rate of $16.20, bringing them up to the minimum of $16.43 plus the 2% COLA would bring them to $16.76, plus a 1% longevity adjustment for a new rate of $16.93 for a total of 4.5%. Employee number 3 with 10 years of service at $16.20 per hour. These are all on market rate. So bringing to minimum plus the 2% is $16.76, plus a longevity adjustment of 1.5% for a new rate of $17.01 for a total increase of 5%. And then employee 4 with 25 years of experience is also at market rate of $16.20. Bringing that employee to the minimum plus the 2% COLA is $16.76 with a 2.5% longevity for a new rate of $17.18 and a total increase of 6%. So again, at the graphic on the bottom, it shows all 4 of these employees all clustered together, making the same thing, which is below the minimum of this new grade range. After these increases are applied, you start to see them, again, getting stretched out on the pay range based on years of service. And the next job that we picked was clinic assistant. The proposed grade for clinic assistant is 3, and the minimum of that range is $17.42 per hour. Employee number 1 with 1 year of service is currently making $16.20 an hour, another market rate. Everybody's making $16.20 an hour, bringing to the minimum plus 2% COLA. Now on this one, the minimum is higher than on the previous example, so it's bringing them from $16.20 to $17.42 plus an additional 2%, bringing them to $17.76 per hour, and then a 0% longevity, giving them a new rate of $17.76 with a total increase of 9.7%. Employee number 2 has 4 years of service, $16.20 an hour, bringing them to the minimum plus the 2% COLA brings them to $1,776, plus a 1% longevity adjustment brings them to $1,794 for a total increase of 10.8%. And employee number 3, 10 years of service, $16.20 an hour, bringing them to the new minimum of $1,742, plus a 2% COLA brings them to $1,776. 1.5% longevity adjustment based on 10 years of service gives them a new rate of $1,803 for a total increase of 11.3%. And then employee number 4 has 25 years of experience and the current hourly rate is $20.54, which is over the new minimum. So this employee would just get the 2% COLA, bringing them to $20.95, and then a 2.5% longevity for a new rate of $21.47, and a total increase of 4.6%. So again, the graphic on the bottom shows employees 1, 2, and 3 all lumped together below the minimum of the new grade. And then 4 is, a little bit out there, a little bit below the midpoint. But after the increases, we're starting to stretch them out, and employee number 4 is getting closer to that midpoint. Any questions so far? The next employee is Assistant Manager, Food and Nutrition Services, with a proposed grade of 4, and which has a minimum of $18.46 per hour. Employee number 1 with 1 year of service, is a current hourly rate of $17.97. Bringing them up to the $18.46 an hour plus 2% brings them to $18.83, 0% longevity, and the new rate is $18.83 for a total increase of 4.8. Employee number 2, 4 years of service with a current hourly rate of $17.97. Bringing that employee to the minimum plus the 2% brings them to $18.83. Adding a 1% longevity brings them to $19.02 per hour, so an increase of 5.8%. And then employee 3, 11 years of service, the current hourly rate of $17.97 an hour, bringing them to the minimum plus the 2% COLA is $18.83, and then a 1.5% longevity adjustment for a new rate of $19.11 and a total increase of 6.4%. And then employee number 4 has 23 years of experience at $17.97 an hour, bringing to the minimum plus the 2% COLA is $18.83. The 2.5% longevity adjustment brings them to $19.30 for a total increase of 7.4%. So again, at the bottom shows currently they're all clustered together making the same thing, and the bottom shows how we're starting to get them a little distance and spreading them out a little bit based on years of service. And then we've got school bus operator, which has a proposed grade of 5 with a minimum of $19.57. The market rate on this position is currently $18.90. So employee number 1 earns $18.90, which is below the new minimum of $19.57. So we're bringing them up to $19.57 plus 2% brings them to $19.96. The 0% adjustment, so their new rate is $19.96 for a total increase of 5.6%. Employee number 2 has 5 years of experience, making $18.90 an hour. Bringing them to the minimum plus the 2% COLA brings them to $19.96 per hour. The 1996 plus a 1% longevity adjustment brings them to $20.16 per hour for a total increase of 6.7%. Employee number 3 has 10 years of service at $18.90 an hour, bringing them to the minimum plus COLA, $19.96, plus a 1.5% longevity, gives them a new rate of $20.26 for a total increase of 7.2%. And then an employee with 25 years of service is currently at $22.30 per hour. They're already over the minimum, so we're just giving them the 2% COLA, bringing them to $22.75. And then the additional 2.5% longevity gives them a new rate of $23.31 per hour for a total increase of 4.6%. And then the final example we prepared is for carpenter, which has a proposed grade of 8 with a minimum hourly rate of $23.31. So there weren't any employees in the 0 to 1 year service for that, so that's just an NA. Employee 2 has 4 years of experience and a current hourly rate of $22.04. So this employee is going to be brought up to $23.31 plus the 2% COLA, bringing them to $23.77, given a 1% longevity adjustment, bringing them to $24.01 for a total increase of 8.9%. And then employee 3 has 10 years of experience, currently at $22.13. They are also under the new minimum, so they're being brought up to the $23.31 plus 2%. So they would then go from $22.13 to $23.77, plus a 1.5% longevity, bringing them to $24.13 for a total increase of 9%. And then employee 4 has 22 years longevity, the current hourly rate of $22.04, bringing that employee to the minimum plus the 2% brings them to $23.77, plus a 2.5% longevity for 22 years, and the new rate is $24.37 for a total increase of 10.6%.
Okay, any other questions on option 1?
Do you have any questions about that option?
I've actually got a few questions, if you would, on, first question would be how you've established the market rate to begin with, and what you're calling market rate. If these numbers are coming from a table that you're taking at, you established these numbers eight years ago. It's never been, well, I'm assuming it's coming from the market rate. Is that not the start of this?
No, these are, to create the ranges, these are all based on new market data that was prepared and completed by Evergreen. They went out to our peers, found out what they were paying their employees in these different jobs, and that is what was used to create these ranges and then assign each of these jobs to the appropriate range. Which, yeah.
I was just adding to that. We gave, the last time we met here, we gave the ranges and the pay grades for each of the jobs based on that. So these ranges that we're talking about today are those.
Okay, then I guess, if you would, my next question would be, you did a walkthrough a few sessions back where we were told that we were given the data with what the market rate was, or what the wage study showed. And these numbers aren't even close. Again, I wonder, at what percentage are you, is this Is it the 40%?
It's the 50th percentile, and it's the range at the 50th percentile. So if you look at any of these positions, there's a minimum and a maximum. So for instance, a sites worker can start, the minimum is $15.50, but it goes all the way up to $23.25. Similarly, if you go to the back, the carpenter goes up to all the way to $34.96. That's the range within which a person in that position can be paid based on what we bargain. Our option is based on the availability of $7.2 million to bargain. But we're also trying to shift to a new salary schedule so as to increase salaries, reduce compression, and make us more competitive. And we don't have the interests up here, but I think those are some of the interests that we all agreed on when we started.
A couple meetings ago, I did a different presentation called "There's So Many Numbers," and what I explained in that one is that there was one of the documents that we initially gave you where Evergreen had just averages. Here's all of the jobs, and the average of all of these jobs is X percent above or below the midpoint of our peers in those jobs. That didn't have anything to do with actual salaries or anything like that. How those numbers come into play, it doesn't mean that the goal is to pay every single employee at the midpoint, because that would mean an employee with 1 year of service would get paid the same amount of money as an employee with 25 years of service. That's not the goal. What those midpoint numbers mean is when you have all of these different grades, so say we have, how many different grades do we have? We have 15 grades. A job as a basket weaver, the market shows that the midpoint of the job of a basket weaver is $17 an hour. That job is then placed into the grade that has a midpoint closest to $17 an hour. That's how a job is matched to the appropriate grade. Not everybody is going to be paid at that midpoint.
Again, I'm not understanding this. My understanding of what I'm looking at, and this is going back to what you broke it down for us, and I asked you a question back then. Look, if somebody is exceeded 15 years, they should be at the maximum, and that would make sense. I mean, I've got two different charts in front of me. One's at the 50th percentile and one's at the 40th. I would assume 50 percentile would be a market rate based on
Well,
a scale of
15 years of service doesn't necessarily equate to the maximum of a range. If that was the case, people would max out in their associated pay range like pretty quick in their careers. It's usually probably a little closer to 20, 25 years where it's getting at the max. But then on the other hand, with the 7.2 million, there's just not enough money to immediately place everybody into the range currently at the number of years that they have.
I understand that, but your charts clearly show that this is a range, and they're getting it from somewhere. They're not. Obviously, this is you can say, yeah, you're right. It could be between 1 and 25 years, but they broke this down between 1 and 15 on this chart.
Can you show me which chart you're looking at? Yeah, I don't see anything on here. There's nothing on here that is establishing what the range is. All this document is doing is saying that for the first one, procurement services analyst, the average pay for all of our employees who are in that job is 7.1% above the minimum of our peers that average 1726. The midpoint of our peers for that equivalent job is 23.82. The employees at the school district are on average 2.8% below that midpoint. This is nothing to do with grades, this is nothing to do with ranges. This was the very first step in providing a comparison of our average wages to our peers' average wages.
Is it? I mean, I've got some other questions as well.
Okay, go ahead.
For starters, I would like to know the cost of this evidence study. And what was the cost to expedite?
Right, that's what you were asking, Chris.
Right, yes.
We have the agenda. So it was not to exceed 170,000, 171,000.
I guess the second part of this question is, what was the intent of the wage study if you guys aren't, I don't see how you're using it. And I'm understanding, it seems pretty clear what they're showing you. And I'm not getting this. I mean, you could make this range into anything you like, but what it's showing you is it's showing you what the average is on the low end, and it's showing you what the average is on the high end, at 50% and at 40%.
I'm not sure how to explain it.
Well, I mean, the intent of the study was just, as we have discussed in here and everywhere, to do a survey of our peers, a comparison of what our salary schedules are compared to where other people's salary schedules are, our competitors, our peers' salary schedules, and do, excuse me, work to make our salary schedules more competitive based on our competitors, our peers.
Okay, can we do another data request for all the information that you have in regards to that wage study?
We've given that.
We have all of it, so we could run through this as well and check the numbers, is what you're saying. We
Yes.
have everything in front of us because, again, to me, it seems pretty clear where these numbers really are. And
Sorry. I was just, to add one more thing to that, well, and what might be helpful too was, in part of what we went through the last time where we showed kind of a comparison of the current pay structure to what the new pay structures would be, to see where at a similar grade, right, from 3 to 3, how those were going up, and then also as you compared where we were slotting jobs into the grades, where those slots would come from where they were, when you compare where they were to where the options are proposing, then we have ranges of salary increases that would go anywhere from, there were, in one of the options that you'll get ready to see, there were a couple of outliers that maybe got nothing, but as you one of the sheets that we have here that we haven't gotten to yet, but that we will get to, the little single sheet that you had there, showed an average increase of, at different ranges or at different years of positions, and then also a range of increases that one might see at different years of experience. So therefore, where you see the information being incorporated from the salary schedule study is, number one, the ranges of the grades are richer. They're more than what they were under the old one, because it's incorporating that information that we got from Evergreen at the 50th percentile. Am I saying that it's, at 100%, or it's at everything that you or I or all of us will want to see? No, not necessarily, but it's at 50%. And then number two, where you see it is when you look at least the options that we have and will present, because you've only seen one, we're about to get to the other one that you haven't seen yet, but there's a range of increases that could be anywhere from 2% to 12 or 13% that you'll see in those, and then also a stretching out of that compression that we talked about, that is that interest. So in order to move from one system to another, in order to accomplish all of the goals that we have, including the alleviation of compression that we talked about so much in here, and then also trying to get, a minimum amount of increases to everyone so that everyone sees something, it is something that has to be done over, as we discussed, a period of time. But that information that Evergreen gave us is presented in not only the proposed pay structures, which are different, which are new, which are more than the old pay structures, but also in how people are placed on grades and the individual percentage increases in the options based on years of service. I'll call it a compression adjustment, in order to help try to alleviate that. And I think Kirsten has something that she wanted to add to that.
I was just going to go back to the document that you're referring to. That's just a very high-level summary document that was prepared by Evergreen at the beginning. What that document represents is, of all of the peers they looked at out there, 14 peer organizations, using custodian as an example, assume each peer has 100 custodians, that's 1,400 custodians. That average pay for all of those, what is listed on that document as the midpoint. Then they took all of our custodians that range anywhere from 1 year to 30 plus years, their pay as an average, and compared it to the average of all of the peers. That's just a very high level average. It does not mean that every single 1,400 employee custodians that are peers make that amount, nor does it mean that the goal is for every single one of our 100 custodians to make that amount. Because again, a 1-year custodian is not going to make the same thing as a 25-year custodian. The individual market data for a custodian or any of those individual jobs, where this 50th percentile comes in, is, say, I don't have that in front of me, is, $18.76 an hour. Custodian is then placed into the grade where that 50th percentile matches that grade. So employees who are at the 50th percentile are going to match the midpoint of that grade. But employees with less service are going to fall below, and eventually, hopefully, employees with more service are going to fall above. But initially, we just need to get people onto the new pay structure and start getting them spread out and start spreading out that compression.
Another question, Chris?
I've got a lot of questions, but again, this is why I really like to see your what was presented to you from Evergreen, and I think so will a lot of other people here. But in addition to that, you've increased pay ranges that was another thing that, how do you increase pay ranges and not have some kind of a step system or block system to coincide with that? Because you're never gonna get there. And just as now, people that should be there now are never getting there.
I mean,
So-
how do you increase individual people within the range, or the ranges themselves to adjust with the economy?
I believe in the last presentation here, they wanted, the option was, part of it was to increase the pay range for certain employees,
Well, there's probably like 3 different factors that come into play here. One is every couple of years, and there's no hard and fast rules, but as there's big fluctuations in the market, like in what's called the CPI, Consumer Price Index, that's the same system that Social Security uses to base their increases on. When we have big fluctuations in the market, that is kind of a trigger for us to go back. And so, I think it was in 22, there was a big, inflation really hit and market just kind of went crazy. Where I was at before, we took our existing grades and we adjusted them all 5.5%. So the minimum was increased 5.5% and the maximum was increased 5.5%. So that's one way the grades themselves can increase over time based on the local economy. Another thing that's typically done is best practice is every 3 years to do a new market analysis of each individual job. So over time and through the market, different jobs become more, quote unquote, valuable within the market, and that's changing over time. So every 3 years, we would look at each job and find out what the current market price is, and that might end up changing the grade that a particular job is assigned to. We also can change grades that a job is assigned to based on, if it becomes a job that becomes particularly challenging to fill, or there's a lot of competition, we're having a lot of turnover, we can choose to increase the pay range for that particular job to meet those needs. The third way that people will progress within that range, if they don't get in there, they're not just stagnant, there's the across the board increases that the board might approve every year, so 2%, 3%, 5%, 8%, whatever the board agrees, whatever is bargained. There are, people do lateral moves, or their positions are reclassified, or additional responsibilities, and these are all pieces that are bargained on how much each of those things what type of increase would that result in. So, when somebody's promoted from one job to another, is that a 5% increase? Is that a 10% increase? So people aren't just, and I should add, I know the intent is to down the road try to incorporate merit into all of this. We don't have an evaluation system that currently supports that, but they're working on it. So at some point down the road, that may be another way that people can progress through the ranges, but there's a lot more flexibility because it's not just tied to a 2.3% step increase, which hasn't, to my understanding, actually happened since 2009 anyways.
If I can respond to that, again, I haven't seen any numbers that has been distributed to us that indicate where you derive this from. Okay, so again, looking at this study, I'm still having a difficult time understanding how initially, you guys are kind of mixing market rate. Well, we're paying you guys on market rate. There's a market rate table in name only, apparently. Okay, that market rate has not been moved for 8 years. And so am am I to understand, we're going back to the market rate? We're saying well, you gave an example last time. I believe it was a plumber. And he said, the plumber is at this market rate, what you used. And you said that you give 2% for X number of years and another 2% if they were at this range. But what is the market? How are you deriving the market rate?
So this option isn't market rate at all. It's not market rate. It's an open range, and the range of the job is based on the proposed pay structure. I will hold it up, but this is the information that we went through the last time. So this is the range in which, this is the salary schedule, I'll call it, because that's what for jobs that are on the step and grade, it's the salary schedule. This would be the new salary schedule that we would be working off of. It is not a market rate.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying?
No, I didn't.
This coincides to nothing that we have currently. These numbers that you're putting out, I don't see, are you making them up as you go? You're saying you're getting them from the wage study, but I don't see how. They're that far off.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is help us understand how you derived this proposed pay structure. Tell me what you have, what you see, and how you derived this proposed pay structure.
Yeah, based on this study that was just done. How did you derive at this pay structure? That'd be the right way to say it.
Okay, all right. So I understand that question, and we can try to come back at it with some information that would help to clarify that.
Yeah. And again, I'd love to see all of it. I think everybody here would love to see all of it.
But you have it. When you say all of it.
Well, I mean, okay, but again, this is what you've given us here is not enough to come up with the numbers that you've just come up with. So I'm thinking we don't have all of it.
Okay, well, we'll try to do something different to draw the lines from that to this.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Lois?
And just to have this on record, this would be in addition to the current longevity that's paid for years of service, years out?
Yeah, we have no proposal that changes that.
Sure.
Yeah, I know in here you refer to it like a longevity adjustment, but we may want to compression adjustment, they call it compression adjustment.
That would make it.
Yes. A little more clear, right?
A little less confusing.
Yeah.
All right, Rob?
No, I just want to sort of, I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know, but we're trying to come up with a plan, and we've proposed one option, we're going to propose another, that uses the bargaining authority we've been provided, but also moves people to a new salary schedule or way of paying them. And this is not easy, and I understand the confusion, but I think we have a mutual interest in trying to ultimately, in the long term, fix compression and make our SPALC positions more competitive in the market so we don't have such a shortage of employees. And I think those are our interests, and we're trying to get there, but I think it needs to be reemphasized that we've always thought that this would be a multi-year process. We're not going to get there overnight. We're hopeful, and I think really hopeful if you look at some of the charts, that everybody, absent a few outliers, will see an increase. And that's where we're trying to get. Currently, in the market we're in, for lack of a better word, we're bargaining every year. So it's not like the chapter or the book is closed forever. It's not. It's reopened every 6 months, it seems. So that's where we're trying to get to, and I just want to keep that in mind. This isn't the end. It's actually the beginning, because when we bargained last year, we said, well, we're going out for a salary study, and that's going to be an important ingredient in next year's bargaining. And lo and behold, here we are. So that's that's kind of the give and take that we're undergoing.
Anybody else? Are you ready for option 2? Oh, Kevin.
So forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe we want to see the end goal and say someone with X amount of years is potentially placed here. I would love for that to occur. This is what we can do this year. This is what we could potentially do next year and the year after that. But the end goal is to end here. I think it's hard not saying what the end goal is in these conversations. So I'll just throw it out and I'll be the sacrificial lamb. Let's say 30 years is the end of the salary schedule. So we're going to try every year to move employees towards that end of salary schedule for 30 years. Can't do it all in 1 year. So what we're trying to do here is move everybody to the salary schedule. Next year, if we want to put emphasis on compression, we'll try to expand that longer or larger and larger. But this is what we can do with the current threshold that we have. Does that help at all? Or no?
All right, do you need a break or you want option 2?
No, we want option 2.
Okay, let's go with option 2.
Yeah, please. I'm going to take one more stab at trying to show you how that document that you have translates to these ranges. So on the sheet that you have from Evergreen, go to custodian, and what does that show for midpoint for custodian? And this is just one example. You can pick a different one of the 6 that I presented here. $1897? Okay, so now 1887. So on this option 1 document that we just went through, the 4th page is the example for custodian. At the top, the minimum is 1643, but if you look at the bottom, which is the actual grade, the minimum is 1643, but the midpoint is 2054. Now, this is higher than what Evergreen recommended, the 1887, because custodian is one of the jobs that we identified as a hard-to-fill, high-turnover position, and we recommended a higher grade than what Evergreen came back with. And that was on one of the documents that we gave you at the last meeting, where we showed you the grade that Evergreen recommended and what we chose to do because of the management proposed grade, a higher one.
Mike, please, Chris.
I do see that you're going back keep going back to a midpoint, but I still can't understand how you have a 40th percentile chart here and you have a 50th percent. That tells me that
The 40th percentile, they looked at 40th and 50th and 60th, and we eliminated the 40th because we already pay at the 40th. So the 50th is the one that we're kind of working off of now.
okay,
Because we couldn't afford to do the 60th. So it's the 50th percentile is what all of the future Evergreen data was built around, was the 50th.
So if you took 13, 14, 15 schools or municipalities and you average them out, you come up with a minimum average, you come up with a midpoint average, and you come up with a maximum average, correct?
Correct, but that doesn't necessarily form the range or the grade.
I don't see how it doesn't.
Because then we would have to have a grade for each individual job, as opposed to there's 15 grades and we fit the job into one of the 15 grades based on the midpoint for that individual job.
That's another thing I'm hoping we get to talk about,
Well,
the pay grades and possible block systems and going forward, because I don't see.
There is no compensation structure in the entire, that I've ever seen that has its own grade structure for every single individual job.
No, I understand that, but again, that's why I asked for the data request last time around, was I suspect most of these other schools that they got this information from are still on a step system. They're still.
We provided you the list of where the comparables are.
That's right, we have a list.
You have a list. I will say, which is a perfect time to pass it out. So, and Chris, I appreciate your inquisitive nature. SPALC is always welcome to propose options. So, this is not easy work. Thank goodness Kirsten came to us. Because this is real difficult work, and her and Amy have been working exhaustively to come up with just two options that expends the money and also appears equitable and gives people a fair increase. So, but we're always willing to share whatever we can with you that might help you come up with your own options.
All right, ready for option two? Are you ready for option two?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so option two used the exact same 6 jobs and the exact same 4 employees within each job so that you can compare side to side how each of these options impacts a particular employee. So you're getting an apples to apples comparison. Option number 2 is instead of bringing everyone to the minimum and giving them a 2% increase, is just bringing everyone to the minimum or a minimum of a 2% increase, whichever is greater. So everybody's gonna get 2%, whether it's by bringing them to the minimum or bringing them to the minimum plus a little bit, so it's worded as bring to minimum or 2% COLA, whichever is greater. By doing that, it allowed us to do a little larger compression adjustments. So on option 1, instead of doing 1%, 1.5%, 2%, and 2.5%, option 2 allows us to do 2%, 3%, and 4%. So it's giving a higher compression adjustment to stretch out that compression a little bit more. All right, so are we good there? Okay, so then if we go to the first one, which is again the worker sites, same grade 1, same minimum 1550, but this employee 1 year of service, $16.20 an hour, bring to minimum or 2% is bringing them to $16.52. At $16.20, they were already over the midpoint, or the minimum of that new pay grade, so that it would be 2% COLA. And there is no compression adjustment, so the new rate is 16.52 for a total increase of 2%. And so if you compare that to the other one, that's the same on both options for that particular scenario. Option number 2, 4 years of service, the current hourly rate is $16.20, already exceeds the minimum, so they get a 2% COLA, $16.52, and then the longevity adjustment would be 2% instead of 1%, which was on option 1. So the new rate is $16.85 for a total increase of 4%. Employee number 3, 10 years, $16.20 an hour, plus the 2% COLA is $16.52. This employee gets a 3% compression adjustment instead of 2%. And the new rate is $17.02 for a total increase of 5.1%. And then option number 4, 31 years of service, $19.99 plus 2% COLA is $20.39. And then they get a 4% compression adjustment, bringing them to $20.21 for a total increase of 6.1% compared to option 1 of 4.5%. So in the little graphic below, you can see it just spreads them out just a little bit more in between 1 year, 4 years, 10 years, and 31 years. Okay. And then we go to the next one, which is custodian. Still grade 2, minimum of $16.43 an hour. This one currently a market rate where everybody's making currently $16.20 an hour, regardless of 1 year and 25 years. Employee number 1, $16.20 an hour. They are below the new minimum of $16.43. So we are bringing them to $16.53. So $16.43 is not a full 2%. So we would just give them the higher of the 2, which is the 2% COLA, bringing it to $16.53 and no compression adjustment. So their total increase is 2%. 4 years, $16.20 per hour, bringing them to $16.53. Compression adjustment of 2% based on 4 years of longevity. So their new rate is $16.86 for a total increase of 4%. And employee number 3 is 10 years, $16.20 with the 2% COLA, $16.53. They would get a 3% compression adjustment, bringing them to $17.02 per hour for a total increase of 5.1%. And then employee number 4, 25 years of service, $16.20 plus a 2% COLA, $16.53, plus a 4% compression adjustment, bringing them to $17.19 for a total of 6.1%. So those are a little bit higher than in option 1. The next job is clinic assistant. Again, this is another one on market rate, with most of them at $16.20 an hour currently, but it's going into grade 3 with a minimum of $17.42 an hour. So in this case, going from $16.20 to $17.42 is higher than 2% increase, so we're bringing them to that minimum of $17.42. Employee number 1 does not get a compression adjustment, so their new rate is $17.42, and the total increase is 7.5%. Employee number 2, 4 years of service, going from $16.20 to the new minimum of $17.42, plus a 2% compression adjustment for a new rate of $17.76 for a total increase of 9.7%. Employee number 3, 10 years of service, $16.20 an hour, going to the new minimum of $17.42 with a 3% compression adjustment, bringing them to $17.94 and a total increase of 10.7%. And then employee number 4, 25 years of $20.54 per hour, which exceeds the new minimum of 1742, so they get the 2% COLA, which brings them to 2095. A compression adjustment of 4%, bringing them to 2179, or a total increase of 6.1%. So again, on the little graphic, you can see they went 1, 2, and 3 clustered at below the minimum, with 4 still under the midpoint. And with this, they're now starting to get stretched out along the continuum of this open range. And employee number 4 is 2 cents over the midpoint. So they're essentially now at the midpoint. The next job is assistant manager, food and nutrition services, minimum of $18.46 an hour. Employee number 1 with 1 year is at $17.97. Going to the new minimum of $18.46 is greater than 2%, so we're bringing them to the new minimum. No compression adjustment, so their new rate is $18.46, and that's a total increase of 2.7%. Employee 2 with 4 years is currently at $17.97, bringing them to that new minimum of $18.46, plus a 2% compression adjustment brings them to the new rate of $18.83 for a total increase of 4.8%. Employee number 3 has 11 years, currently at $17.97, bringing them to the new minimum. $18.46 is greater than 2%, and then they're given a 3% compression adjustment, so their new rate is $19.01 for a total increase of 5.8%. And then employee number 4, 23 years, also at $17.97, bringing them to the new minimum of $18.46, plus a 4% compression adjustment for a new rate of $19.20 and a total increase of 6.8%. Then we've got school bus operator. New minimum is $19.57 an hour. And this is another one that's market rate. Just about everybody gets $18.90 per hour currently. 1 year of service earns $18.90, bringing them to the new minimum of $19.57 is greater than 2%. So we're going to bring them to the new minimum, plus 0 compression adjustment, so their new rate is the $19.57, and that's an increase of 3.5%. 5 years, also at $18.90, bringing them to the new minimum of $19.57. Gets a compression adjustment of 2% for a new rate of $19.96 for a total increase of 5.6%. Employee 3, 10 years of service at $18.90 an hour, bringing them to the new minimum of $19.57. A compression adjustment of 3% brings them to $20.16 per hour for a total increase of 6.6%. And then employee number 4 with 25 years is currently at $22.30 per hour, which is over the minimum. So this employee would get the 2% COLA to $22.75, a 4% compression adjustment for a new rate of $23.66 for a total increase of 6.1%. And then we have our carpenters. Again, new minimum is $23.31. We don't have an employee number 1. Employee number 2 has 4 years of service. Current rate is $22.04. Going from $22.04 to $23.31, the new minimum is greater than 2%. So they're going to come to that new minimum, plus they would get a compression adjustment of 2% because they have 4 years longevity. So their new rate would be $23.77, which is a total increase of 7.9%. Employee 3, 10 years longevity, has a current hourly rate of $22.13. Again, it is a greater amount to bring them to the new minimum of $23.31 than it is to give just the 2% COLA. So we're bringing them to $23.31, a 3% compression adjustment based on 10 years. The due rate is $24.01 for a total increase of 8.5%. And then employee 4, who has 22 years, is currently making $22.04. Again, just bringing them to the minimum of $23.31 because that's a greater increase, plus a 4% compression adjustment based on 22 years, brings them to $24.24 for a total of 10%. So like with this option, you can see this employee, the 22-year employee is currently paid a little less than the 10-year employee. With this option, because they get a greater compression adjustment, the 22-year employee is now going to be a little higher than the 10-year employee.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. Any questions on option 2?
Oh,
Amy, you have additional or?
I was just gonna go a little bit into the single sheet that they have, if that's fine, or if we have questions, that's okay too.
Question first, or do you want to go through this sheet, Chris?
Let's go through the sheet, we get through the data,
Okay.
and then, we can go to pockets, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's the plan. Let's go.
All right, so the single sheet that you have at the very top, it says percentage of increase and then the total increase under option 2 or under option 1, the top section. This just gives a breakdown of, and now this was just the employees that we had on hand at the time the data was pulled. So of course, every time we have somebody come and go, it's gonna be different, but this was a snapshot in time, right? So it shows you the kind of the layout of the number of people that under each option would be receiving certain percentages of increase. So you have 4 people with 0 because of the fact that they're already at the max. So that would be the 4 people. Then you've got, under option 2, 620 people that would be receiving a 2%, and then 285 under option 1. So on and so forth. You see under, you have people who would be receiving like a 9 to 10% increase, 178 people under each option, or the next level down, 10 to 11%, 107 people under option 2, 166 people under option 1. So that's how that's read, just to give a little breakdown of the different options and how they impact the numbers of people based on percentages of increase. So that's one. So you can kind of go now for each, for option 2, for option 1, add up, what it means in terms of people who would be receiving under a 5%, over 5%, just to kind of analyze what your impacts are and what you would like to see. You'll see under option 2, there's more people overall that are receiving a more than 5% increase under option 2, and that's because of the increased compression adjustments 2, 3, 4% as opposed to the somewhere between 0 and 2.5 under the option 1. So option 2 gives you more impact to there. Then the bottom half of it, and it does go onto the back of the sheet as well, so just note that there's a bunch of numbers on the back of the sheet as well. The bottom half also compares the 2 options based on the number of years a person has in, and the average increase that people at that number of years would see, the average increase, But then there's also the range of the increases that people would see at that year's level as well. And so you're able to kind of see, as you compare the two options, option 2 and option 1, especially flipping over to the back of the page, you can see your greater number of years. Option 2 gives you a greater average percentage increase for as your years go up, because of the fact that that compression adjustment is larger under option 2 than it is under option 1. And then you can kind of see, you know, how the ranges differ in each of those as well. So there's the average increase for the people at that number of years of service, and then there's the actual range of increase. If I'm at 13 years of service, there might be a person in there that has as little as a 5.1% increase, and somebody at that same number of years that has a 10.7% increase, if you're talking about somebody at 13 years of experience under option 2. So just wanted, I think the last time we met, you all were wanting or requested a little bit more breakdown of the one option that we had talked about at the time, but now we have two, so we made sure to include for both things. You wanted more of a breakdown of what the numbers meant and what the impact was to different people, and so we provided that breakdown.
Okay, thank you. Patrice, I see your hand going up.
A really quick question. Thank you for the information. I just want to understand that range. That's just based on the different job classes for that.
Yes, so that's based on all the individual people right now. Like I said, it'll change depending on who's there.
Right.
But of the people right now, how they're getting placed in the grades on the new salary schedule and what the individual impact is to them. Someone under, you know, option 1 with 0 years of experience may be receiving anywhere between a 2 and a 10.3% increase depending on how the job is placed on the salary schedule.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, Carlise, you mentioned the caucus. Yes. I imagine this isn't going to be a short one. Right. Guesstimate, 20 minutes? It is 3:44. Start with 25? All right, starting with 25. Are you good with that? Yeah. Okay, then I need y'all to guess, please.
No, we're gonna go.
Oh, you're going to guess. Okay, you have a room?
I don't know.
Well, fine. You're gonna find a room. Okay, then nobody has to move. SPALC asked for the caucus, so you have a report for us?
Okay, a lot of information to unpack it with so little time. We did come up with two options. Option one, it's actually going to publish the option. Oh, right.
Five-ish, unless you're on the option five. Yeah, they had their option one.
Yeah, June.
But option two, three, and four.
There was options, there's other options up there.
Yeah, right there, so right, your option one is on 5 or 6.
No, our option two
Is option 5.
is option one.
Okay, option 5, got it. So this is option 6. Right, so you can take my spots, but I remember. Okay.
Okay, option 5.
Option 6.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I saw 5, okay. Okay, option 6. We had asked that question probably about 2 months ago, what it would cost to get everybody over to the midpoint range. And they said it would be like 22 million. So we thought, why not shoot for that? Why not get everybody to the midpoint range and ask for 22 million? Let's be the bigger and better school district and pay our people accordingly. And part of the reason was looking at some of the options which we had asked for. But if you looked at like say for carpenter, you have no one that's a 0-year carpenter because they're not coming in for that price. But someone that was a 22-year carpenter was making 93 cents more than a 4-year carpenter. I mean, that's huge. People aren't being paid for their years of service.
Twenty-five-year carpenter?
I believe it was a 24-year carpenter and a 4-year carpenter were making 93 cents difference.
On which option?
That was option 2.
Okay. Okay. And you have 2 options?
Yeah, so I believe option 7. So we went, with this option, it was just looking at, and we know it's important to get people on the salary schedule, the 15-grade schedule that we've been talking about. But with the lack of funding on the table and the amount of folks that we represent, 4,300 bargain unit employees, people are in dire need, whether you're new or whether you've been there a long time, and compression's been a big issue. So our proposal here would be to give everybody the 2% COLA that's been on the table today. And then break it down by years of service. So if you've been here, say the 0-year folks, they would get an additional 1%, which would equal a 3% increase. Years 1 through 4, they would get an additional 1.5%, equaling a total of 3.5%.
1 through 4,
Yeah,
would get an additional
1.5 for, that would give a total of 3.5. 5 to 9 would get an additional 3%, equaling 5%. 10 to 14 would get 5.5%, totaling 7.5%. 15 to 19 would get 6.5%, equaling a total of 8.5. And then our 20 plus folks would get an additional 5.5, equaling 7.5%. The total cost for this is, give you the exact. The total cost with the 21 would be $7,342,132.
Amy, question?
Yes, question related to the option 7. So is this, I just want to make sure this is not taking any of our salary schedule study information into account. This is just people going off of what their current salary is. There's no moving to a new salary schedule or anything. This is off of their current salaries. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that the correct assumption on the option?
Yeah, that's, we went off the total amount of money on the table. And we thought that if we can get folks up and their percentages help tackle compression, and then we go back in August to, whether it's in labor management, and start really building these structures and hopefully get the amount of money on the table for the next round of bargaining to place people appropriately.
Just a clarifying question about option number 6. So you said everyone to the midpoint, so that means whether you've worked 0 years or 25 years, you would be at the midpoint based on your job. Is that?
Well, around the midpoint. Let's get everybody up and, you know, tackle getting folks to the job as well as keeping folks.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, that means a new hire and somebody that's been here for 30 years would all be around the midpoint, the same. There wouldn't be a range, it would be like a rate, okay.
Practice report. Hold on, let me get out of here. That's okay. Hold on a sec, Rob.
Got it.
And you said it was option 6 you were talking about, Jason? Yes.
So a little housekeeping, do we have, you put our option 2 is option 5 up there, just so it's documented. Option 2 from district, perfect, thank you. Okay, just didn't want to lose track of that. So we discussed the 2 options that we had presented, which are 1 and 5. And there was also a discussion about clarifying language in the PowerPoints, or at least the PowerPoint regarding option 2, to clarify how we got from evergreen to open range, connecting those dots to have people have a better understanding of how that all occurred. And we're prepared to do that. I'm not certain if we need to do that tomorrow or not. I know Amy and Kirsten were working on it, so. You could present that? Yeah, okay, so we could show it now. So that was really the crux of our conversation. We also had a conversation about the fact that less than a year ago, there was an 8% raise for SPALC. And there is an average 5% raise essentially on the table because that's what $7.2 million is. So we have a significant interest, and I hope SPALC shares it, in getting away from the step and grade and the current market rate, the way we currently pay people. And we've been committed to that now for over at least a year.
Okay. Finish writing. I have 441. Do you want to see the data that you requested that they came up with during caucus before we end this evening? So you have time to digest?
Yeah, that is fine, but I wanted to answer a couple of questions. Amy asked the question and then Rob made. So Amy, we did consider all the information, right? But this is where we are with the information. It is a lot of information, right? When I went to the school district meeting on the 26th, the superintendent even kept repeating how much of the information it was, right? How much time it would take to go through this information. So before today, we have had a total of, together, 3 hours and maybe 45 minutes, right? Going over this data. That is not enough, right? We want to work with the district also to come up with the best pay scale that's gonna be, for all employees. But one of our concerns was compression. We have a serious compression issue, right? And we did not address that last year. We did surveys, we promised our people that we would look at everything that, we surveyed them on, and compression was one of them, okay? So looking at the information that we have received from Evergreen, this is targeting certain jobs, right? And right now, because the most important thing to us, and we thought also the district was compression, that's how we came up with, our information, and we based it upon what we was our bargaining authority. I mean, we would have loved it if we would have just got that 22.7 billion, and we could have handled it all at once. We understand we cannot. So for us, it's important to take care of the compression. First is putting all the focus on taking care of certain job classification. We would like for us to get together immediately and start working on the options, but just like Lois said, you got people in one job and their difference is only pennies, right? So, and actually, tell you the truth, we actually compared our percentages to your percentages, and they wasn't off that much. Even with how you guys propose to accept some of the jobs classification. But when you go to your options, and you go to the years, our proposal is not very off. It's not off, that much at all. It almost lines up. So I just wanted you guys to know we did look at all the information, but because there's so much information, and we just feel we need more time to work on it because, like I said, together we have had less than 4 hours, and we just feel that that's not enough time to really put together, and us, you know, as a unit can honestly say to, you know, the employees, yes, we make the best decision. We can't say that because we have not met enough to work on putting a proposal together. Thank you.
So, do we want to show what we worked on? You want to see that? Okay, okay.
We want to see all the data we can see.
More data. Maybe you got locked like all the doors were locked.
Right, this one isn't anything fancy or pretty. We didn't have any information for sites worker because that wasn't on that initial document provided by Evergreen. Okay, we didn't have any information to compare for sites worker because that was missing from the original data provided by Evergreen. For custodian, kind of what we did here is the grade of 2. We've got here the minimum of 1643, midpoint 2054, and maximum of 2446. And these numbers on the bottom represent what Evergreen had did in that initial summary document. So what they had was a minimum for custodian of 1547. Our recommendation is higher than that for a minimum at 1643. The initial documentation from Evergreen had the midpoint at 1887. Our proposal is 2054, and the maximum was 2259, and our maximum is 2465. Because again, this is one that we increased that range because we felt this is one of those high turnover, hard to fill jobs that we wanted to pay higher than at the 50th percentile. The next one is clinic assistant, grade 3 that we are proposing, The minimum is $17.42 compared to the minimum of $15.96 that was on the document provided by Evergreen that you were referring to. Midpoint is $21.77. Their midpoint was $18.45 and maximum $26.12 and compared to $21.21. Again, clinic assistant is another one that we proposed at a higher grade than what Evergreen originally came back with, because this is a high turnover, hard to fill position.
So I just think it'd be important to note then that like employee 4 with 25 years of experience with, this is option 2, would be making more than what Evergreen proposed as the maximum.
Assistant manager, food and nutrition services, the minimum of grade 4 where we placed it is $18.46. The documentation from Evergreen has the minimum at $16.78. Midpoint of grade 4 is $23.08. Evergreen is $20.90 and maximum of $27.69. And Evergreen's maximum is $22.78. And school bus operator, minimum is $19.57. Evergreen's was $18.05. Midpoint $24.46. Evergreen $22.50. And maximum $29.35. And compared to the summary document $25.95. And carpenter, $23.31 for the minimum on grade 8, $29.13 for the midpoint, and $34.96 for the maximum, compared to $22.80 for the minimum, $25.40 for the midpoint, and $30.60 for the maximum. Now, the reason for these differences, again, several of these we recommended be in a higher grade than what the market said they would be in, because we know there are hard to fill positions. The other reason for that is because there is not a grade range for every single individual position. All of the positions from the lowest to the highest are condensed down into 15 grades. So there are going to be cases where it's actually higher than what the actual individual job market dictates, but in all cases, it's higher than what the individual job market is, not lower.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point something out, and I think Arlise said we're targeting certain jobs. We didn't target certain jobs, we use these as examples. So we could have chosen any SPALC position. So there's not targeting. Each job will have a pay grade, 1 through 15. So, and then we can do the same thing for whatever position it might be, paraprofessional, bus attendant, anything. So these are just being used as examples.
Okay.
Arlene?
So what I mean too about so much is it's a lot of information, right?
Yeah.
So even when we were going back and we looked at certain job categories, right? We see that those, just like you said, some of the jobs that you chose will get increases, right? From what the old schedule showed, but some of the jobs also will get less, because we do have jobs that actually was at one grade that's going down like 2 different grades. So is good for some, bad for others. So, we're looking at all of that also. And Rob, okay, so let me ask you a question. Maybe I needed to ask this question first. So on this sheet that Amy gave us, right? So if you go to the people that's gonna get the largest percentage, right? Total increase, option 1. And if you go down, all the way down to, let's do a high and a low one. So the highest percentage, let's get some numbers here too. So we're gonna go with 10 to 11%, and it's 107, right? Who are those people?
I don't know their names. We certainly,
What position?
yeah, I know what you're asking. I mean, that's certainly information that we could probably
Okay,
obtain.
okay,
I don't have it here right now.
okay. And I think when Lois actually asked for the data request, that's what she was asking, correct? What those positions was gonna be? So for example, here, we don't have, okay, so, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe when you broke it down, I think it was Amy, when you broke it down into percentage, like 30% we're gonna get this much. I wanted to know who those 30% of folks were.
Go back, John.
Yeah.
What position?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I guess we.
Yeah, so if you're saying inside of this, you gave the example of a 10 to 11%, the, under option 2, the 107 people that are supposed to be getting that, who are they or what positions are they? If you want that breakdown here, I mean, we could give that breakdown here. I mean, just the 10 to 11% that I'm looking at right now in option 2, it would be information specialists at the secondary, bookkeepers, safety and security specialists, transportation support. I said safety and security specialists, right? Carpenters, electrician, clinic assistants. So that encompasses the 107 people that are here. But if you wanted that information, that breakdown for each of these, certainly we could provide that.
Yeah, see, I think we need that because I think maybe, Kevin, you can straighten me on this, but we get a lot of phone calls, right? And I know after tonight, when we leave out of this building, they're gonna be calling us saying, okay, are these, on the handout that they gave you, option 2, where do I fall in it? I'm not gonna have anything to tell them, right? So it's information that we don't have all of the information, right? Because they're gonna wanna know, all 3 information sheets, or you heard there's 2 packets in a sheet. People are gonna wanna know where they fall into that. We cannot tell.
Yeah, but I would say, yes, we could. Yes, we could. Yes, we all could, because depending on, it's not as easy as saying, well, if you're a clinic assistant, you get this percentage, because you could be a clinic assistant and get any one of these percentages, right, based on what your situation is. But you could say, all right, you're a clinic assistant now, what's your rate now? All right, so now we're looking at the new proposed pay structure, and based on the new pay grade, this is what your minimum would be. And then, okay, how many years have you been here? Oh, okay, so then we're gonna add this other percentage to give you the percentage or the total of what you could be expecting. So for each individual, me could tell them, they also could figure it out with the information that we give them in a crosswalk to do just that.
With all due respect, 2 people over there on your team just said, one said basically it was too much, and then when I asked the question about who are these people, you guys said y'all didn't know. So if y'all put all this information together, right, and you wait a minute, when I said who were these people, you did say you can find the information out, but y'all truly said y'all did not know, and I'm telling you, that's what people are hearing. They're hearing.
She just said she could figure it out.
Right. I'm saying that. She said that she could figure it out, right, eventually and give us the data, and I appreciate that. But see, what I'm trying to show is, see how we have questions and we don't have the answers. People are gonna be asking us these questions, right? And we supposed to be able to answer. If they call me and say, Arlise, I got 9 years, 19 days, 20 hours, I should be able to tell them what their pay is. So that's why, right, we were saying, because it's so much data, right? And we don't have everything we need to go with it. That's why we went, you know, with the option that we went in. It's a lot of data. We're not rejecting it. We're just saying, as a team, we need to work harder on this information. So no matter what questions we get, we should be able to answer. And I feel that's what makes a good bargaining team on both sides. Thank you.
You're welcome. And yes, I hear you, but just to clarify, I think what Rob didn't say that we didn't know. What he said was, well, she doesn't have that with her right now. But he didn't know I do have that with me right now. So I went on ahead and gave you what you were asking for at that particular, you know, little range that you had asked for, right? So we do have that, can give that, but I hear what you're saying in that it's not necessarily a, you know, a boom, boom, boom. It will be a process to try to explain things and to clarify and to make sure that everybody understands, so everybody understands what it is that they're voting on. I hear you on that and don't disagree with you on that, but I'm just saying not necessarily reason not to do it. It would just be a matter of how do we get there from here then, right? Because whenever it happens, and we have to make sure that we're working together to put all the information out there that everybody needs to understand. So I hear you on that. But we do have it.
It is now 5:01. We have 3 days in a row scheduled, so I want to try to keep you here to the time frame we suggested. Rob?
I'm just sitting here wondering what we're gonna be prepared to do tomorrow. So, I don't know if SPALC has any thoughts. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Amy. Yeah.
All right, I need to know if everybody's okay, staying past 5. We're past 5 now, but everybody's.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. I didn't know that's what you were asking.
I have to go, but,
And I thought you were leaving at 4:45.
You have some people that have to leave also.
late, so I can, okay, I do have one question, let me ask, because I've been away, so this current pay structure, it was in one of your meetings, and then there's the proposed pay structure. How did they come up with those grades? I just need to better understand that piece.
So I think that's something that we're talking about bringing back tomorrow too, to discuss, because
Oh.
that goes along with the same, I think, if I understood the
Okay.
question that Chris was asking,
Yeah.
how to go.
Okay.
Here, like, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. And Rob had a question about,
No, I'm good.
we good with tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get the presentation? It's okay. Did you get the presentation that was done like 2 meetings ago, with the numbers, so many numbers?
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, okay, because that kind of explains too how all of this data was taken and the structure of the grades is built.
Okay, I'll look at that. All right, so you have the evening to think of questions, Lois?
Just clarifying question. Amy, did you say you could have this information for us tomorrow? With the sheet? I'm trying to.
Yes, if you are asking if the information that you're asking for is at the top, so we've got under option 2, 232 people that are gonna be receiving between 2 and 3% what positions are those? What people positions are those, right? For each.
For each, yes, for each
Am I
breakdown.
understanding that right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, anything else?
Yeah.
All right. Are we good? Chris? One question, that's it.
It's kind of more of a statement and somewhat of a question, I guess. I just wanted to do this for the people that are probably gonna question me tomorrow. It seems like a lot of this, you guys have moved the goalpost, okay? What I'm gonna hear over and over again is that there are people that are topped out on the pay scale, that have exceeded the market rate or the range rates and whatnot. There's some people, I don't wanna say that, I'd love to see everybody make more money, I'm not saying that, but how do I counter that when it seems like, almost like we're in a caste system of some sort here, where we've got one group of people that's always making more, and we can never get there. I mean, and you've proven that over 18 years now. Maybe you guys can think about it and get back to us.
There are 4 people on option 2 that would not get an increase under option 2. It's one particular job classification that exceed the maximum of that proposed pay grade. So what happens with those 4 people is open to bargaining. You know,
Again, we're only looking for, equity and fairness at this point. We're not looking for anything special. Nobody here is looking to make more money than they should, but simultaneously, that's what we're up against. We've got almost like 2 classes of citizens here.
Please explain that. I don't know what you're talking about.
We have some employees that are stepped up, step 99. And again, I'm not trying to take anything from anybody. I'd love to see them make more money as well. But when you have groups that are in the same, whether it be bus drivers or custodial people, they'll never make it to the kind of pay rates that these people are currently at in some cases. So how do you explain that? I can't explain it. Maybe you guys can.
That's why we're here at the bargaining table. And there's 4 people that are maxed out, 4 out of 4,381.
Thank you.
All right. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Bye.